Hello everyone, my name is Sophia Tim.
My name's Ashley Escobar.
And I'm Cesar Peralta.
And our study was memory and metaphors. So, what you probably didn't realize is that when talking about memory, you're constantly using the phrases on the tip of my tongue and down memory lane. But these phrases are actually metaphors. We are constantly using metaphors in our everyday lives to describe objects, places, and even events. We have been studying this for the past 4 decades. Past 4 decades, yeah. Okay, so in 1980, Lakoff and Johnson studied the concept of memory and metaphors. Then in 2011, scientists Thibodeau and Bordixi studied the same concept. This study was called Metaphors We Think With, the Role of Metaphors in Reasoning. This study was based on 2 phrases, crime is a beast and crime is a virus. This study consisted of these 2 phrases. When studying, they gave 2 sets of subjects 2 different articles. One referred to crime as a beast and one referred to crime as a virus. The article that referred to crime as a beast, the subjects who got the article that referred to crime as a beast tended to lean towards having more having more police enforcement and longer jail time to reduce the problem of crime in their town. However, the subjects that got the article that referred to crime as a virus tended to lean towards having more academic and educational programs to decrease the problem of crime in their town. Another study that was conducted in 1980 was the Roediger study. This study consisted of analyzing metaphors in academic theories. One study was Plato's wax tablet metaphor. This consisted of thinking that memories are getting inscribed on tablets, and over time it gets worn away. This focuses on forgetting over time. However, another study that was focused on was the Broadman's library metaphor. This focuses on memories as books that you have to find in a library. This focuses on the structure of memory like a cataloging system. However, these are academic theories. And now we're wondering how metaphors affect people in their everyday lives. Our first research question was, what metaphors do people use to describe memory?
So the methods for survey, there was 17 participants who signed up online for the study. And so each of those participants got 30 minutes of course credit for participating in the experiment. And some of the example questions were, how do you think memory works? How do you remember things? As well as, how long can you remember? So the development of the codebook. We investigated general memory metaphors. And so for example, if participants were to lean more towards the idea of memory being a muscle, then we would put that in the code book, and they would become a memory or a theme. And so the way that we coded it was that if a participant had their answer relating more to memory being a muscle, then we would put that under as a 1. And if it didn't relate to memory being as a muscle, then we would just put that in as a 0. So we used memory identification procedures for the cases that were hard to more ambiguous. And so this is an example of the general memory metaphors. And so there was about 8 or 9 general memory metaphors. And so under each of those, you see these were some of the examples that we used to help us with how we can, if we were trying to see which ones were more leaning towards the muscle, then we would kind of go to that and see if it were to be that. And so how do you think memory works? This is an example response of what a participant said, and they said, an event, action, or experience becomes memory once it has completed. So I think memory works as a way we store or save the past experiences we have gone through. Once the experience is done, it gets sent to the remember this file in my brain, which I believe to be the temporal lobe. So this specific chunk of paragraph is leaning more towards memory being a computer. And so how do you think memory works? And so for this one, it varied a lot. So 5.9% said that memory works as a muscle. 35.3 said that memory works as repetition, and 52.9 said that memory works as being neurological. How do you remember things? And so I remember things by digging back to what the concept is and retrieving it based on how well associated the information is. This is easier if I understand the concept and how the information is important. So this specific response is more towards like digging into like your memory. How do you remember things? And so this actually varied a lot as well. And so 41% said that they remember things by connections, 29% said they remember things by imagery, and 23% said they remember things by repetition. How can you make your memory better? Yes, I believe so, by practicing or training. Flashcards is a common form of training the memory and quizzing. Yes, just like any other skill, memory can be improved on by practicing and applying. Yes, I think so. You can improve your memory by improving the strategies you use to memorize information. If you mean better as shifting its capacity limits, then I'm not sure. And so, can you make your memory better? So for this one, we saw a lot of zeros that the participants didn't think that their memory was better by like objects or searching or as a container, and so. But as you can see, 35.29% said that they can make their memory better by repetition. So, study 1 conclusions. So people used a variety of metaphors to describe how memory works. More specific questions had more specific answers. Some terms and answers were ambiguously metaphorical. So, for example, when someone talks about retrieving a memory, is it just another memory term, or are they actually thinking metaphorically? And people might talk this way, but does it actually affect their behavior?
All right, so our study 2 question was, will memory performance differ if we suggest a specific metaphor? So for our methods, we had 2 groups of subjects. One we primed with the memory is a container metaphor, and one we didn't prime at all. And so both those groups had to do a memory task where they learned 12 new items in 8 different categories, completely random categories. And they got to take notes on either the first half or the second half of the categories. That was decided by one of us. And at the end of all that, they had a cue recall test where they had to they wrote down everything, remember, but they couldn't use their notes at all. And so this is an example of what the prime subject saw. Is we had them do like a little activity where they wrote down as many things as they could when they thought of their memory as a container. And then this is what the non-prime subject saw, which is just a set of instructions of what the memory task will look like. So our hypotheses were that participants who are primed with the memory as a container will offload more memory onto their notes and than those who don't get the memory prime. And our predictions were participants who do the memory as a container priming task will perform worse on a memory test for the categories on which they took notes on. So this is kind of like a visual representation of what we thought would happen. So the first 3 up there are the primed subjects. We thought that they would offload things onto their notes, and those offloaded things wouldn't make it all the way to the test, opposed to the people that didn't offload the things, and those items would make it to the test. And so this is a kind of a prediction chart. The orange bars are the offloaded things, meaning the things they took notes on, and the blue ones are the things they didn't take notes on. And this whole chart is measures the memory performance on an average of all of our subjects. So this is what we actually got. So on the left over there, we got what we expected, which is like a regular offloading effect, and then on the right here, our results kind of flipped. The blue bar, which is the no notes, what we thought would be higher than the orange bar, actually was lower than the orange bar. And so our conclusions were that the unprimed subjects, the unprimed conditions, in the unprimed conditions, we got normal offloading effect, meaning lower performance on the categories they got to offload. And we predicted this effect would be even stronger on the primed conditions. Instead, this offloading effect flipped on the primed conditions. They got higher performance on the categories they got to offload. This still shows that the metaphor did have an effect, just not the one we expected it to have. So this might have been perhaps because them thinking of their memory as a container might have made them less confident on their memory. So our overall conclusions were people do seem to use metaphors as a way of thinking, as a way of describing their memory. Thinking in terms of a specific metaphor does seem to have an effect on how your memory works. And follow-up studies in the future, some of the follow-up studies are we plan to determine which metaphors are specifically more metaphorical, meaning which ones have more an effect on the subjects. And so, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.